In the time of need, you will be our God, my God. Yet, Lord, now, Father, have mercy upon the Lord. Bless those out here in the fire that talks about the Lord. Have mercy upon them, I pray thee, oh God. Yes, Lord, have mercy in your name, my Lord. We ourselves can't do nothing but them, Lord. As your in the fire.
Being stopped. Recording
Awesome.
in progress.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for being with us and appreciate you waiting on us. We had an excellent conversation just now on the open space and recreation plan on Delcart and Beaver Ponds. So thanks to everyone who joined us for that, and we'll start off our normally scheduled programming for the Conservation Commission. Just before we get started, a quick announcement that we'll continue to be operating in a hybrid format. So folks are welcome to participate either in person at Town Council Chambers or via Zoom. If you'd like to participate on Zoom, you go to the Zoom application. The meeting number is 889-7218-5720. Or you can use the phone number to dial in. The phone number is 929-205-6099. And again, the meeting number is 889-7218-5720. Happy to take any comments, any feedback, any presentations, either via Zoom or in person. Just before we get started with our public hearings for this evening, we'll take a quick roll of the commissioners who are present in chambers and virtually.
Michael Ryan's
Jeff,
here.
can we start? Oh, hey, Mike. Thanks.
Jeff Milne.
Mark LePage here.
Jeff Livingstone.
Richard Johnson.
Meg Hagan, present.
Great. And Pat Gallagher. Thanks, everyone, for being here. And just a quick note before we jump in, just so that folks are aware, there are 2 public hearings tonight for which the applicant has requested a continuance. We'll still call the hearings, and if anyone has any comments, you'll still be welcome to provide those comments. But just so everyone knows, those 2 are for 25 Forge Parkway and 1 Paddock Lane. So those 2, again, folks are welcome to ask questions or make comments, but just so that everyone's aware that the applicants have requested continuances for those 2 hearings. Without further ado, the first hearing we have for this evening is for the Spruce Pond Aquatic Management Program. Is anyone for the applicant on with us tonight?
Yes, this is Sean McCarthy. How you doing? I am with Solitude Lake Management. I will be presenting on what this project is. So let me know if you want me to jump right into it or how you want to handle it.
Yeah, I think this is our first hearing for this one. So if you can give us an overview of what you're coming in for, that would be great. Thanks,
Absolutely. Sean. So again, I'm Sean McCarthy. I'm a project manager with Solitude Lake Management. We manage over 100 lakes here in Massachusetts and across New England. We're a nationwide company, so we manage hundreds more, across the country right now. I'm here to talk about Spruce Pond. In this case, the client is actually the Spruce Pond Village Association, and we're seeking approval to continue a project management program at the pond that has been kind of ongoing off and on. I know most recently we've treated since 2020. I see some records that we were involved before that. That was before I was at the company. I don't know too much about that. But right now we're looking to continue a previously approved order of conditions. That was DEP 159-1193. So the goal of that is to continue controlling the invasive growth of pondweed, other plants that have grown there, while seeking to improve the biologic function of the water body. One of the reasons it becomes important is some of the invasive species, in particular milfoil and some of the filamentous algae, can have a pretty negative effect on the water and on the quality of the water and the way it's used by people and wildlife, et cetera. So that's one of the main goals, is to control the nuisance growth that has occurred there. And, milfoil is a problem in a lot of ponds. Once it gets in there, it just spreads like wildfire. It just sucks up all the space that it can. So we have that filamentous algae can create health problems. It can suck the oxygen out of the water if there's enough of it, create issues for plants, etc. And then we also have some loose stripe that's growing there. Not a huge problem, but enough where we do want to keep it under control so that it does not grow and spread. So, and by doing that, it's our goal really to continue to monitor to make sure these don't come back, so we don't really have to treat too much when they do come back. Maintain open water habitat, and kind of promote the growth of less pervasive native plant species, especially ones that grow a little bit lower, a little bit healthier, don't pig up all the resources in the pond, and just makes for good, safe recreational access to the pond and a good pond for wildlife to come drink from, swim in, etc. So based on that type of distribution, the vegetation that we find, as we say, regular monitoring, and then the use of some very specifically selected herbicides and algicides that are registered by the US EPA. When I say registered, they are monitored, and they don't approve what they say is it's okay to use these. We have no issue with it. So at both the US Environmental Protection Agency and the Massachusetts DAR have looked at those, and they are on their approved list. So the pond itself, it's about 5.25 acre water body. It falls into 2 basins, and those 2 basins are separated by Quince Island Road. Now, the larger portion of the pond is about 3.75 acres. The smaller section is a little bit over 0.5. The watershed is kind of a small area. Most of the water comes from surface runoff from the immediate area. There is some supplemental water that comes in from a small brook that runs through the land that's kind of south of the pond and drains in that general direction. So let's see, I've already talked about the continuation. So the plan is about controlling the invasive growth, and the big issues are the variable water milfoil that's in the patches in 2 basins, and those patches will get larger. We've seen it get larger if they are not dealt with every year. And the benthic filamentous algae, one of many types of algae, but the one that's most of an issue here in this pond. And that's mostly growing along the shoreline, and in some cases it's intermixed with the milfoil patches because it's a nice place for the algae to cling to. There's also some patches of white and yellow water lilies along there. Personally, I always like to maintain a few areas where if there's water lilies there, leave a few of them. Fish like to congregate under them, etc. The trouble is water lilies can grow fast to occupy the whole pond. The other issue is water lilies have some very significant stalks. They're about the size of your arm. If you ever seen them in the water, they're colored. They look like a giraffe's neck almost. And they die off every year. They fall to the bottom and they rot. And as that rot continues, it can feed the algae and become, a problem quickly. So water lilies, we do like to keep under control too. So based on all these goals, we want to, like I say, monitor and use, judicious treatment using some of these chemicals that I'm going to list in a second here. So we propose using Diquat, which is the trade name we use as Tribune, on the pond weeds, glyphosate, trade name we use as AquaPro, herbicides that will be specifically on the lily areas, and then copper-based algae as needed for the algae. And that copper-based mostly what we use is a product called Captain XTR, which is a broad kind of spectrum of copper compounds. And then additionally, we are asking for conditional approval for fluoridone, which is Sonar, which is popular with a lot of bigger ponds. We probably won't use it here unless some of the weeds decide that they're going to be stubborn. Fluoridone is kind of a broad spectrum, and it settles in at the roots. It's systemic, and it can kill off under the root area and make it, in some cases multi-year, the effect that we get. We're not proposing any significant alteration to the wetland. In fact, the resources should be enhanced by that, by keeping it as a pond that can be used by wildlife and by people. No physical alteration, no digging, or anything like that. The chemicals, as they are now, there's no restrictions on them for swimming, boating, or fishing. None of those have been requested by EPA. We believe, just in order to be prudent, that we should close the pond the day of the treatment. So we usually do that for 24 hours. And the shoreline will be posted, just like it was the last few times, posted with posters saying, this has been treated, be aware of that, on these temporary restrictions. We also suggest no drinking or cooking with the water from the pond for 3 days. Nobody, as far as I know, this pond is not used for drinking water or cooking anyway, but that's something we say. no irrigation or turf, the water should be pulled from there for 3 days. And then, no livestock watering for 1 day. So that really is the extent of the plan there. I'm happy to, answer any questions that you want. Usually we go, we do 3 visits. Usually we do, a survey at first. We go through, throw a John boat in and go around, throw rakes in, so we know exactly where the plants are. We pull them up, we identify them, make sure we're, identifying them correctly. I mean, we kind of know what's in the pond already. We visit again to do the treatment. We come back, and do a second look, later on and see what the effect was. I can pretty much guarantee we're not going to need to do a second treatment here, but, if there is a reason for that, I'll come back and talk to the Conservation Commission again, and say, hey, look, we'd like to do a second one. But again, that usually, what we've done in the past has worked the first time. Then we'll come back, later in the season, like August and that, see what the long-term impact was and make a plan for next year. So hope that is the info you need.
Thank you, Sean. Brika, can I toss it to you if you have any initial response and questions?
Sure. So I have an initial response. So how this project came about, how the NOI came about in front of you was actually that it expired early last year and an unpermitted herbicide use occurred last fall outside of an approved permit. So I caught it, reached out to the applicant and requested, in lieu of an enforcement order, right, that they come in and file an after the fact NOI filing, and then they can include future applications. I'd like the commission to know that unfortunately this NOI doesn't include any mention of the unpermitted herbicide use. So I would request, Sean, that you include that in the next iteration or revision or letter.
Actually, thank you for pointing that out. That was, I was not assigned to this at that time. That's good to know. And I think now that you mention it, somebody at work had mentioned that to me, but yeah, that should not have happened.
And then
We got a
additional,
project manager and we got, we had a lot of people. Post-COVID, we brought on a lot of new people. And so my apologies that that ever happened.
sure. And then additionally, there's still an outstanding beta scope and fee that needs to be paid for third-party review. I did take an initial first look, though. They're a little disjointed. I wrote my agent report before I took a deep dive into the narrative anyways. So initial deficiencies or outstanding comments is that this NOI is being filed as ecological restoration. I would encourage you, Sean, to quantify the ecological restoration that you're filing under. I know you included a map for existing conditions for the invasive species, but it'd be really nice to have that quantified. How successful is the treatment, and just justify the treatment a little bit more.
I have a question.
Yep.
Do you mean estimates, like what you
Sure,
think?
yeah, or
What the target
goals are,
targets.
yes, and where were you, what are you now? Are you at 59%, coverage, or are you at 25% coverage? Additionally, an event sequence still needs to be provided under the ecological restoration regulations. They say construction sequence. I would call it for this an event schedule. I know you mentioned going out 3 times a year. That needs to be sussed out a little bit more. Same of time of year restrictions. That's another requirement under ecological restoration. And then additionally, you mentioned in the narrative that work is proposed at a perennial stream crossing. That stream crossing is actually town-owned. And I did call up Derek Adams. He's a stormwater super, and he doesn't have any correspondence yet. That work is proposed there, so you'd want to rope him in for that.
I know there's a restricted area.
Sure.
I didn't mention that during my introduction because I honestly didn't know how large that was. I haven't been to the pond in a while. Before we go, I'm going to go, and if somebody wants to meet me, then we can certainly walk it, and you can tell me exactly which area is restricted. Because when I look at the map, I don't see that.
It's the culvert itself is town-owned, and you're working the loose strife, your glyphosate treatment, clearing out veg, all of that. That is everything from King Street down to the water is town-owned, is what I was told. Additionally.
Just so I understand, what does that mean? Is that all restricted or part of it or?
That means you would
What can I
need prior
anticipate?
authorization with the town, DPW, who manages that, for any work within that area. And then you'd also need conservation approval considering the resource area that it sits on top of.
Okay,
So additionally, alternatives analysis to the chemicals, I know you wrote some other BMPs that could be used, but I think considering the amount of chemicals, it's warranted at least some compare and contrast with others. So that's what I had in my agent report. I did include for the commissioners the MSDS sheets that I could find in the EPA fact sheets for all the chemicals, so I would encourage you to read that. There's a lot in there. A lot of it is, I would say, broad stroke, generally fine, with certain application rates that may differ from what's in the NOI. So that can definitely be talked about later.
Rika, quick
Yep.
question for you. Is that something that would be within Beta's typical scope to take a look at, the quantities of chemicals and, weigh them against alternatives, or would that require some other, kind of specialist to take a look at?
So I think Beta could include it in their scope to look at the MSDS for sure. I can tell you I already reached out to Derek Adams and everybody at DPW that has their pesticide application license to take a look at this NOI. So I definitely deferred to my content experts for it. And then I have read through the MSDS sheets, specifically the ecological toxology. So there are some things in there. Coincidentally, we had just talked about American water lilies, and one of them kills off the American white water lilies, which we just heard a story on. So that's something that differs. The glyphosate, there's a 1 quart for every 2 pounds application rate. Anything above that is actually harmful to native bees. So that application rate differs from what's in the actual NOI language.
will that be outlined in the third-party report that's going to be sent?
Huh?
There's going to be a third-party review of this, correct? Will that
Yeah.
issue be
Yeah,
in
once
there
the
so that
scope
we
and
can-
fee is paid. Yep.
Good, okay.
And then there's just a few of them. Generally, toxicology is low. That's generally. So it's more application and everything in moderation, right?
But we don't have to hire a limnologist or something
No,
like that?
no,
Okay.
you don't. I don't think that's warranted
Okay.
at all. I wanted to include the MSDS sheets just to verify what was written in the narrative. And then last few comments, the applicant is requiring a 5-year approval. Generally, it's 3. 5-year is an extension of that. I would recommend 3.
We've always done 3.
I would do 3, but that's towards the end of the project approval. And then additionally, Sean, it's a little bit of a moot point, but it is in the bylaw, any work within the 25 no-touch zone, so that would be spraying those herbicides on the bank. You'd want to submit a variance. It could be a quick 1-pager, that's fine. Again, I know it's funny and a moot point since you're actually in a resource area. And then lastly, the NOI is missing the local functions and characteristic statements under the local regs and bylaw. So you'll want to outline
I'm
those.
sorry, could you give me both? I was making some notes there. Could
That's
you
fine. Yep.
last 2 bullet points, if you could
Yep.
repeat those? Because when you say the no-touch zone, again, I'm not sure exactly what the area is, so I want
Sure.
to make sure we don't send our guys in to the wrong place. So-
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
And
So
and when you
that's
say
not,
no-touch zone, does that mean absolutely nothing can be done there? Or I just need to give you more details?
no. So the no-touch zone, I can see how that's confusing, is different from, for example, the culvert, which is
Okay.
not a no-touch zone. That's just prior authorization zone, I guess. Anyways, so the no-touch zone under our bylaws and regs, if you go and review our bylaws and regs, there's a 0 to 25 foot no-touch zone, and I'm putting quotations around that. No disturb zone stay away zone, keep off zone. There's language in the bylaw and regs that work can be conducted in these areas with a variance request. So that is a local jurisdiction only, not state jurisdiction. So you'll want to fill out that variance request for the treatment within the 25-foot buffer zone, no-touch zone. And then additionally, there's missing locally jurisdictional, locally required functions and characteristic statements. So you included everything for the WPA, which is great. There just needs to be more of a focus on local bylaw and regs.
Okay. So for the variance, is there a form that I can fill out? Can I find that on your website?
There isn't a form, but it's outlined in the regulations on how to submit a variance request.
Okay.
And Sean, that's handled, it's not a separate process. So,
Yeah.
that's determined at the same time that we hear and would be deciding on an order of
Okay.
conditions.
Do I need to submit some specific language, or is that just something we will talk about when we get to it?
Just a one-page letter is fine. Stick a letterhead on it, you can address it to the Conservation Commission or Chair Gallagher,
Okay.
and then I'll
And can
include it
that
in their
one-page
packet.
letter- Can that one-page letter include both of these? Permission from the town for the culvert area and
No.
for this no-touch zone, or, I mean?
No, it cannot.
I would keep them separate.
Yep.
Yeah, the one of those things is under Concom jurisdiction, and the other is a property access question, and that's not something that the
Okay.
Conservation Commission really has anything to do with.
So who approves that?
You'll want to contact DPW. Derek Adams, he's the stormwater super. So if you go to the stormwater department page, you'll be able to find his contact information.
And so I'm contacting Derek Adams for the culvert area,
Yep,
correct? Okay.
Yep. and he knows, like I said, he has the narrative, so he's already apprised that you'll be reaching out.
All right.
Before we open this up to comments from the public, do any other commissioners have any comments or questions at this time?
Yeah, quick question, Sean. I know you seem like you're new to this. Do you know how long in total we've been doing this at Spruce Pond?
At least since 2020. Like I said, I found one reference in our records to something before that. I can't remember if it was 19 or 18.
18.
So, okay, 18, so 2018 then.
I have a question. It's peripheral. Is there any passive activity that happens on the pond? Is anyone aware of that, or it's just something to look at?
I have never seen anybody out
I
there.
haven't either, but I just was curious.
I have never seen anybody out there.
Okay, because the reason I'm asking is I just wondered if you had, because again, going back many, many years ago to my stay in Wisconsin, where it's a land of many lakes, one of the big problems you had in that town was that you had cross-contamination between lakes. People were taking boats out and even canoes and then putting boats in and then basically transferring like invasive species from one lake to another.
Yeah.
I just
Yep.
wonder if that was going on inside Franklin.
I think the only thing I've ever seen out there is there's been a lot of skating, but I think that time of year, I don't know.
Okay,
if they transfer.
I've never seen like people fishing or trying to do anything.
I think the biggest proponent of connectivity is the perennial stream that goes through
Oh,
it
okay.
right now.
All right, okay.
The milfoil had to get there somewhere, and, chances are it did not come in on a boat.
Uh,
It clings to ducks, it travels a lot of different ways.
okay.
My name is Wayne. I'm a resident. And the pond is very well used in the summertime. There is boating. I do fishing, kayaks, things like that. It's not a large pond, but it's a very well used resource.
Do people fish? Do people fish in the pond?
Yes,
Okay.
I do.
Okay.
My neighbors do.
Do you eat it?
No, I've never kept any of them. A lot of sunfish. I have caught a trout there. I've caught a bass. I don't know if it's stocked at all.
I
It'd
don't
be great
think
if it was.
the town does not stock.
No.
Wayne, is there any sort of like boat ramp or how do you get boats in and out of the water? Just curious.
I do it right in my backyard. My backyard abuts one of the ponds, part of the pond. There is a public area that some people could drive in and put a boat in along one of the little roads, but it's mostly residential.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Oh, can I just make a comment? I just remembered, we did have this conversation about 3 years versus 5 years before. And at that time, one of the concerns is that, again, maybe it's changed somewhat, but because of community development happening so fast, year to year, and like year 1 to year 5, we were concerned that maybe things would change so fast that you would have to revisit that within 3 years as opposed to 5. And also at that time, they were starting to apply new watershed rules about runoff, phosphate, et cetera. That was at that time when that was just starting. So we weren't sure where that was going. So we didn't want to make it out so far that we couldn't review that, in short order.
Yeah.
So
Well,
just
that makes
FYI.
sense. Yeah. Thank you.
And it seems like too that, the shorter time period to just take another look at the treatment plan and 3 years from now, it might merit a different approach, more or less, but that gives us an opportunity to do that a little bit closer on.
I think fiscally, to be very honest, the town would want to do that as well, just being conservative.
Any other questions from the commission before we open it up? Otherwise, this is a public hearing, so if any members of the public, either in chambers or on Zoom, would like to comment, I would just ask, before you ask your question or give a comment, if you could say your name and address, and if you're on Zoom, you might want to just use the hand raise function and we'll call on you, that way.
Nobody.
Okay. Doesn't look like anyone on Zoom. So I know we still need the DEP number. This will be reviewed by Beta. I think for now we just need a motion to continue.
It's Michael Ryan. I'll give you a motion to continue the NOI for Spruce Pond Aquatic Management Program.
Okay,
Jeff
thanks, Mike.
Mullins, I'll second.
Awesome. Thank you. Jeff Livingstone, how do you vote?
Vote to continue.
Okay. Richard?
Vote to continue.
Mark?
Vote to continue.
Jeff Mill?
Vote to continue.
Michael?
Vote to continue.
Meg?
Vote to continue.
And I vote to continue as well. So Spruce Pond is continued. Sean, we'll see you on April 20th.
April 20th, okay. And when would I be able to get a copy of that report from the third-party consultant?
I think it sounds like the fee would need to be paid first to get them started.
Okay. Can somebody send me information about what that fee is and whether it's made out to the Conservation Commission or the town or just details like that? You guys have my email. Somebody could send me that. That would be awesome.
Sure.
Alright.
It can be made out to the town of Franklin. We'll hold it in
Okay.
an account, and then we'll authorize Beta to. They're off to the races. They'll send us an invoice that'll be paid, and any money remaining will be returned to you.
Okay. Sounds good. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sean.
Have a good night. Bye-bye.
You too. Next up, we have a continuation of the public hearing for 25 Forge Parkway. Again, the applicant has requested a continuance on this tonight, but if any members of the public or commission wish to comment, you're welcome to do so. Otherwise, Meg, can I have a motion to continue this to the 20th, please?
Yep, I'll give you a motion to continue the NOI for 25 Forge Park to April 20th.
I second that.
Wait. Okay. Thank you. Jeff Livingstone, how do you vote?
Vote to continue?
Okay. Richard?
Vote to continue.
Mark?
Vote to continue.
Jeff Mill?
Vote to continue.
Michael?
Vote to continue?
Meg?
Vote to continue.
And I vote to continue as well. So 25 Forge Parkway is continued to the 20th. And then one more on 1 Paddock Lane. Again, the applicant has requested a continuance on this, but if any members of the public would like to comment, you have the option to do so. Hearing none, Jeff Mill, can I have a motion to continue this to the 20th, please?
Sure enough, give you a motion to continue the NRAD for 1 Paddock Lane to the 20th. What time was that? Is that 7:03?
I think so. Sounds right.
Second that.
I'll
Mark.
second.
Thanks. Jeff Livingstone, how do you vote?
Vote to continue, please?
Richard?
I vote to continue.
Mark?
Vote to continue.
Jeff Mill?
Jeff, vote to continue.
Michael?
Vote to continue.
And Meg?
Vote to continue.
And I vote to continue as well. So 1 Paddock Lane is continued to April 20th. Next up, we have 121 Grove Street. I am recused from that one, so Jeff, I'll hand it off to you.
Thank you, Pat. So, continue the NRAD for 121 Grove Street. Gentlemen, how are you tonight? Good. Just for the transcriber, can you introduce yourself?
And I'm John Shipe, and Chris will do most of the speaking. Thanks a whole lot for meeting with us out last Friday. Since that time, the small isolated wetland we agreed on was delineated. Our surveyor went out there that afternoon, surveyed it. Chris put together some of the transect soil sheets and put together a nice memorandum and submitted to you. So we're here to discuss that tonight. So thanks a whole lot.
Okay. Hi, Chris.
How you doing?
Good.
For the record, my name is Chris Lucas with Lucas Environmental, professional and certified wetland scientist and soil scientist. Just going to briefly summarize the outstanding items here. We submitted a response letter number 2 on April 4th outlining primarily this additional wetland that was flagged. And then we've, in receipt of the Beta, their final response letter, or I guess comment letter, where they went through all the comments. At this time, there are primarily 4 outstanding issues. Beta's first comment was related to an off-site wetland down near the New England Power Company. As that wetland is off-site, we had mentioned before, it's not part of the ANRAD. We do understand that the buffer it's over here, does probably extend into this portion. We will make sure that that's documented for future NRI. We would just recommend a fact of finding to note that there's something there off-site and that the buffer zone needs to be identified for any future permits. We think that's an easy way to resolve this, if the board's open to that. The second outstanding item, Beta had identified 6 areas throughout the internal wetlands where they believe there's intermittent streams. We disagree. We're not seeking a finding on that through this ANRAD, so again, we would recommend a fact of finding that there are 6 areas. Beta has identified the locations. We would just recommend a fact of finding that there's something there, and we can have a further debate if needed during future permits. I think that protects all parties and works favorably to move this along. The third outstanding item, this is Wetland C. This is the area many of you walked through on the site walk last Friday. I'm not going to get into a lot of the technical detail. I'm just going to have a quick, because obviously the area in debate is between flags A30, 31, and C5 and 6. That's this little portion right here. This is all active agricultural area, pretty much down through here, up and through here and down. As many of you recall, wetland C, you were sinking. It was quite wet, clearly a wetland. The area in debate here, our opinion is it doesn't have the hydric soils. We even mentioned possibly pulling the wetland A line up a little bit, but clearly in here, we felt there was a definitive break with bright upland soils that we showed you. Beta has a different opinion here. They believe this is wetland per certain indicators. We disagree. At this point, I think we'll just move forward and it's your time to debate and discuss what you feel it is. The final outstanding item was this is test pit 16. This is the area, many of you walked with us. Jonathan and I stayed behind after and came to an agreement on 9 flags. His letter notes he's in agreement with that. Survey went back out, picked up this line. It's wetland D. We flagged D1 through D9 to capture that area. And so that is now delineated. It's roughly 2,000 square feet in size. So we're seeking confirmation of that as well as part of this ANRAD. That's pretty much it. So we're hoping to be able to close the hearing tonight and let you deliberate and make a decision. Like I said, I think this is really the only area where there's still a professional disagreement. I think those other 2 areas can be resolved through a condition or fact of finding, whatever you feel is appropriate. And then you all can have that discussion on this point.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Brika?
Do you want to hear from Beta first for their response letter?
Yeah.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
Thank you, John Nero, Beta Group. So Chris did a good job in summarizing kind of all the outstanding points per our letter that was issued yesterday. As many of you saw on the site walk, Beta and Lucas Environmental both took a very close look at the area between wetlands A and C. As Chris noted, we do have a professional disagreement on what that is. Beta does feel that that is a wetland connection, which would therefore classify wetland C as a bordering vegetated wetland as part of the A series, rather than an isolated wetland as currently depicted by the applicant on plans. We've provided both parties have provided some pretty substantial responses in terms backing up both of our stances, so I won't bore you with that right now, but we discussed a lot of it in the field as well, so we do maintain that there is the USDA hydric soil indicator F6 within that area, and it would constitute a wetland. As Chris mentioned, we did also stick behind, and Chris flagged out that additional D-series isolated wetland. We agree on that boundary. There was another area in question, and I think some confusion beforehand north of that area. Lucas Environmental did document, though, through a pretty comprehensive look at the dominant vegetation and the soils, that although that area is at the bottom of a hillside and there is some high groundwater, you do not have saturated conditions long enough to actually form hydric soils or support a dominance of hydrophytic vegetation. And then the other point regarding the streams, we had recommended as well that that be included as a fact of finding. I would defer to the commission on how they would like to word that, but we did feel that there were additional streams at the site. However, they're interior to flagged wetlands. And that's about it. If anyone has any specific questions on our responses, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thanks, John.
Thank you. Now my turn.
Bring your turn.
Thanks, Jeff. Well, I agree with the facts of finding for both of the intermittent streams, and then there was one other one, I have it written down. Thank you. Yes, the offsite wetland. I did mention at a previous hearing that the offsite wetlands, you could use the Mass GIS layer, so at least the buffer zone could be shown on the plan. It's up to the commission if you'd rather that. I think considering this is an ANRAD and it's not an NOI, so these plans won't be on any sort of construction sequence plan, I think it's neither here nor there. It's really for the contractor to know where resources are. This, we can just make a fact of finding, and we can stick that GIS layer on an additional iteration. I'm impartial for what the commission wants for that. sorry, Chris and John, I still maintain, back from my original site visit in October, that the Wetland C flag series connects to the Wetland A flag series, thereby making it be jurisdictional as BVW. So there are a few, well, not a few, there are 2 different ways that the commission could go about this. The applicant mentioned that they'd like to close this tonight. Review letters were sent only within the past 48 hours, or 72 hours now. So if the commission hasn't had sufficient time to read those, it is within your right to continue this. So you can read those review letters. You actually have to recuse. You can't vote. Okay. Thank you, as you're listening to me. So anyways, so it is within your right to continue, since all of you, sans Michael, were on the site visit last Friday. If you feel comfortable voting to close tonight, I think that's fine. I would not vote to issue an ORAD tonight, so I can get the language for the facts of findings, and then you can sign at the next time. So, up to you. Or vote to continue, and then I can get the language, and you can sign at the same time as we close it.
So we can vote to.
You could have vote to approve, not vote to close.
Vote to approve the ANRAD.
The ORAD with whatever, side anecdotes you choose.
Rika, can I just ask quickly, fact of finding is new for me. Can you just quickly give a quick one-liner on what that is?
Sure. It's a finding of fact. So that, in essence, what it would mean is that if anybody were to look at the ORADs, that's an order for the resource area that's been delineated, they would look at that and they would say, okay, so the Wetland A flag series, that is finalized. But these intermittent streams up here, they've never actually been determined. So as Chris was mentioning, if down the pipeline, they need to put a building there, they need to put a park there, they want to do something, they would have to get those delineated at that time.
Okay.
So it's a fact of finding that this did not occur, this did occur, this is how it is. It's an anecdote add-on to an ANRAD. Would you both agree with that?
Yeah, just if I may, typically in legal proceedings, a finding of fact is basically something that is set up typically by the judge such that, because he knows that at some point in the future it's likely that there will be additional litigation. So he wants the next round of litigants to understand some of the, I would say, off-case things that were observed or were expected during that case. So it's really basically like the judge making a note for future proceedings that, just so you guys are all aware, these are the things that happened, or these are things I observed, so that you actually knew in the context what actually occurred. So providing for better context, right? So a more clear understanding of what it was that actually went down. So I think in this case, it's the same kind of thing.
So Jonathan and Marika, you guys would be relatively speaking comfortable with approving an ORAD with fact of finding being out there for the intermittent streams in the offsite?
And the Wetland C flag series connecting to Wetland
We've
A.
got that, that's all.
Yeah.
So
That would be a fact of
I was
finding.
kind of taking like the easier step
That's fine,
first.
continue, you're right.
So you guys feel comfortable with that?
Yes.
And so the real issue on the table remains.
Wait, can I just, you don't need to finish?
Yeah,
Just-
please, Jeff.
So my so again, I'm just trying to distill this down to very, very basic elements, right? It seems that the professional disagreement, correct me if I'm wrong, this is to everyone, it's the basis upon which the classification is being made, yes? It's either it's a connector or hydric soils, right? I heard there's no hydric soils or something like this. If I'm remembering correctly, no hydric soils, therefore it's not a wetland, but yet it connects to wetlands, therefore it's a BVD. Is that correct?
It's interpretation of
It's
soils.
interpretation of soils. Okay, I see. Okay.
Which we had a lot of
Yeah.
exploration out there the other day.
I see. Okay. Yeah, I wasn't there, unfortunately. So.
I know.
Wow.
Okay.
So then it becomes a factor of what we think on wetland C.
It's
isolated
professional
area.
opinion.
That's
It comes
what
down
it's
to
down to.
professional opinion, basically.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
You are more than welcome to take your time. If you need to think about it, that is okay.
So another question. Again, given what this is going to be used for, what this ANRAD is going to be used for, does it materially impact what the objective is for this property, either one way or another?
Any classification of these wetlands versus isolated versus BBW state jurisdictional depends on what can be impacted down the line for this project.
Okay. all
We
right.
can't discuss the project,
Yep. Okay.
so,
I just basically, I mean, if there's no material impact, then it's kind of like a moot point.
yes.
I'm just saying.
Yeah,
Technically,
no,
practically.
that's why it's a point of
Practically.
contention.
Practically.
Yeah.
I'm kind of with Matt on going ahead with the approval on it with the, like we discussed, based on what we saw out there.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think, Chris, the feeling, I don't want to speak for everybody, is we really felt like that was bordering as opposed to isolated wetlands. So agree with everything, but you guys, I don't want to speak for everybody, but I think that was our consensus based on what we saw. You guys put a lot of time into it. Very, very nuanced argument, I'd say there's a lot of subjectivity in it. We're not scientists, right, but that was our read on it. So, I'd almost say, if you want to close this tonight, I mean, I'm just throwing this out to the commission, we could do an ORAD that would, approve it with the understanding that's a bordering vegetative wetland with back to finding out there for the other two issues, and we could close it out that way, if that's.
I like that.
So-
That sounds reasonable. I just, I know you're not speaking for the other members. I'd just like to hear if everyone agrees.
I'm not trying to.
But no, we're happy to pull the commission on that point. We'd like to hear,
please,
we'd love to
please.
hear what you all think,
Yeah.
So if we could pull the commission on this point and just hear from
Chair
everybody.
Milne, go, if you could corral your
Sure enough.
fellow commissioners, please.
So, Michael? I'd like to go last, since I wasn't
Sure.
there.
So I'm going to go in with Mark and with Richard on this issue.
I liked what Mark said.
Megan's online too, don't forget about her.
Yeah, Megan?
Yep, thank you. I am in agreement. I feel like this, similar as Mark said, there is a lot of science on both sides. So it's a legitimate point of contention from your perspective, but I feel like from my perspective, there was enough evidence to call it the bordering vegetative wetland and play it conservative with that approach. So that's mine, in line with Mark and Jeff there.
Okay, I think we're unanimous in our opinion here.
Oh, Michael.
No, so I'm going to agree, based on what I've read. I know I wasn't there, but what I've read, what I've heard, I'm going to agree with the commission.
Okay. That being said, then, yeah, I think we'd like to close the hearing, and, if you make a fact of finding, just, we'd like you to note the specific flags where the connection was. We've outlined it, I think Beta's agreed with the flagging, the specific numbers, which was A 30, 31, and C 5 and 6.
Yes.
So that would be the connection point. And, if that needs to be noted in fact of finding or condition, we'd like to move this along.
Chair Milne, Beta has another comment
Sure enough.
as well. Thank you, Chris.
I just wanted to bring up one, one thing to consider sort of on the administrative end. It has been a while since I've worked on the Concom side and issued an ORAD, but I do recall there is a portion of the form that actually, you discuss essentially what you're approving at the site, specific flag numbers. You can even break it out as an attachment with a table, things like that. But there also is, a portion to discuss things that aren't confirmed. So, kind of consistent with what Chris just mentioned, is you would want to specifically note the 2 flags on the C-series wetland and then the 2 flags on the A-series wetland that you would be saying that connection is between, because since if the commission does feel that those wetlands are connected, that would thereby then be saying that there is essentially unflagged wetland between the 2 of them. And so all 4 of those flags should be noted as essentially unapproved because you feel like there is some direct nexus or connection there. So that's the only thing I would add for consideration. Thank you.
So Brika, does the paperwork need to be changed now?
It is not drafted because I did not predict how this would go. So and considering there is an appeal period for any sort of approval, so I would recommend that commission approve the ORAD as stated with the fact of findings, and then we can vote to approve it at the next time, or close it at the next hearing. And I will have that language for everybody drafted so that when you put your signature to it, that's what it is.
So all we're gonna do tonight is approve it, but not close it?
Correct.
Okay.
Approve
gonna
it
say-
as, with fact of findings as stated.
We don't need to refer to the flags.
If you want to list out everything that they just said, you can read out. Yes, so that will be included in there. So the fact, I'm shorthanding it.
Yeah, that's what we're
by
hoping for.
Yes, by saying if you say fact of findings as stated, we're all in agreement. You know, Chris Lucas said that it was fine, Beta agreement, town. So that when we go through the meeting minutes and with all my notes, it'll be written out in that way. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
And if it
Clear
helps,
as mud.
if it helps Brika as well, when you're writing it up, in the ANRAD, we usually list all the flags.
Yeah.
We identify them. Obviously,
Yeah.
there's some additions, but that helps speed things up at the end here.
I have them.
As an administrative question, and I don't know if Jonathan has an opinion on this, I thought you could close the hearing and vote on it tonight, because then you have 21 days to issue the order,
You
which would give you
can.
the time, so.
You can. The commission can also approve it and close at a later date and close when they have that language. Other boards also do it. It's pretty common.
Right.
So, otherwise, you could take a recess while I go draft them, but I don't have them. Or you could approve it as stated and then just trust at the next time, Chris, right? If there's any changes, they can't be changes then. So the 2 weeks, it leaves flexibility to be able to write it the way that it should be written.
Yeah, I guess our only question, I know quorum became an issue, so I think we'd be, if amenable to the board, I'd rather see you close and vote on it tonight and then take the 2 weeks to issue the actual paperwork, just in case if 1 or 2 members didn't show up, then you don't have a voting quorum. I hate to see this drag out further, if
It's
we
been a
could
while.
close it
I
up.
think.
That's fine.
I think we expedite it if that worked for you, right? I mean, I don't know,
I'm with you.
I'm with you.
Yeah, we would love to expedite it.
So that's
We've been
fine.
here for a while.
So then you do the same thing. So vote to approve, vote to close, and then at the next 2 weeks, you'll sign.
Okay. Mark, you wanna do a motion?
So we have to make the motion.
what's that?
I said, you have to make the motion.
So we're voting to approve first, right? So we're voting, or motion to approve the ORAD on 121 Grove Street with facts of finding as stated.
Richard or
Oh,
Megan?
I'm sorry. We didn't take public comment.
Oh,
Can I say something about it?
Sure.
If the public is, as soon as you're done with the public.
Mr. Chairman,
Floor is yours.
thanks very much. Just to clarify, if you vote this evening, is it going to be very clear, and I think we all want it to be clear, that what you are voting on is stating that wetland C is connected to wetland A and the specific flags that we discussed tonight, right? That's going to be clear in the record? A16 to C4, et cetera, et cetera?
A30, 31, C5,
That-
6.
to C6
Right.
and,
Yeah, great. That's all. I just want to make sure.
Yeah,
Thanks a whole lot.
that was our goal, right?
Right.
So, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
thanks.
Tyler, is there anybody in the public? No. No, okay. So, Mark, I'll
So,
turn it back to you.
yeah, motion to approve the ORAD on 121 Grove Street with facts of finding as stated.
I'll second it.
Okay. Megan, how you vote?
I vote to approve.
Okay, Richard?
I vote to approve.
Vote to approve.
Vote to approve.
And Jeff Nolan votes to approve. So that's all we're doing tonight. We're not gonna close.
You can
We
close
are
it.
gonna
Yes, close it because that's what you and the applicant just agreed
Okay, so
on.
we are gonna close it.
Yes,
Okay.
close it.
I have a motion to close. Rich? A motion to.
I'll give you a motion to close.
Thank you. A second?
I'll second it.
All right. Margaret?
Vote to close.
All right. Michael?
Vote to close.
Megan?
Vote to close.
Richard?
Vote to close.
And Jeff Nolan also votes to close.
All good?
All good.
Good.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Okay, Jonathan, thanks for everything.
Thank you.
Thanks for hanging in.
6 months go by fast?
Well, thanks for taking the time to do this.
Yeah,
out.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
It clarified a lot of things.
Pat, I return the meeting to you.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, everyone. So that concludes our public hearings for tonight. Rika, do we have anything other than 305 Union and then the minutes and then Delcart? Is there anything I'm missing?
No, there are a few odds and ends that I thought I could update the commission on, other than Delcart, but nothing for general business, other than 305 Union.
Okay. Richard, this one's for you.
What's
We
that?
need to extend our very,
No.
yep,
How
we're
long
doing
is
it.
gonna last?
I think are we coming up on a year now?
Yeah, actually May will be a year.
So we were in communication with the owner and with their consultants this past week. My understanding is that we're still collectively waiting on Mass DEP to review the non-traditional work plan with the restoration component that had been submitted. And, we've reiterated to the owner that until that's approved and until they are closed out with Mass DEP, that on advice of our town council, Mark Sorrell, that we're going to continue to keep this enforcement order open. So, Richard, can I have a motion to extend the enforcement order for 30 days, please?
I'm gonna give you a motion to extend the enforcement order for, what was it? What's the name of the?
For 305 Union Street.
305 Union Street for another 30 days.
Second that.
Okay. Jeff Livingstone, how do you vote?
I vote to extend.
Richard, how do you vote?
I vote to extend.
Mark?
Vote to extend.
Jeff Milne?
Vote to extend.
Oh, there it is.
Michael?
Vote to extend.
And Meg?
I vote to extend.
I vote to extend as well, as silly as it seems.
The gift that keeps on giving.
Next up, we have the minutes from March 22nd. Did anyone have any comments before we vote to approve this?
None for me.
All good. Mark, can I have a motion to approve the minutes, please?
Yeah, motion to approve the minutes from the March 22nd Conservation Committee meeting.
Second.
Richard, how do you vote?
Approve.
Jeff?
Abstain.
Mark?
Approve.
Jeff Milne?
Vote to approve.
Michael?
Vote to approve.
Hank?
I vote to approve.
And I vote to approve as well. So the minutes for March 22nd are approved. Next up, we have a handful of updates. Rika, what order do you want to go in?
I'll just go in the order that I wrote them. So last Wednesday, we had our Converse and Conserve workshop. We had about 22 people attend. It was really great. The cupcakes were amazing. Birchwood did a really good job. I went for the food. And if anybody wants or needs any sort of field guide for ferns, tracks, trees, any tree books, any Northern Woodlands Spring 2023 magazine, please come take them from my office because everybody left all their swag. And I'm very grateful for it, but I only have so much foot space. So you can have at it. There's a tick. I don't have, do I have my keys? I have my keys. They got like little tick removers. I've actually already used it. It works well.
You've used it already?
Yeah. Not on myself, on my pig.
Oh.
He catches them. I just move them. Then I put forest, I'm actually going to go out of order. Forest stewardship plans on here. Ryan Jetty is jazzed about forest stewardship plans now, so he and I have been meeting to put them in on as many properties as we can. So the next one is Riverbend. I imagine, well, I would probably pick the same landowner goals as I did for Delcart. I don't think we want to harvest it for timber. We can't take money off of it, so I think that's a moot point. The biodiversity project update for Delcart was what I mentioned earlier at the open space meeting that May will be getting all the vegetation and plants in and purchased, so those should be planted soon, and then hopefully next week the turtle nesting habitat will be scarred prior to May, and gravid turtles coming up. Beaver deceiver updates. I'm meeting with Mike Callahan. He actually runs Beaver Solutions. He's who I'm learning under as a beaver wetland professional. For the 4 Abbey project, which you recently approved, between Derek and I for Beaver Deceiver. I think you were gone for that one.
I was gone.
It was a great project.
Jeff, you missed a good one. You should rewatch that.
Okay, yeah.
Yes. So it's, have you heard of flow devices? I mean, you've been around. Yeah. So we permitted it for 2 flow devices and 1 keystone fence.
Okay.
So it's a pretty large beaver BMP project, but
It was deceptively complicated.
It's deceptive. That was good. That was a good one. And then lastly is our Delcart event on April 23rd. So I think everybody that I had reached out to table or host an event has gotten back to me. We will have Audubon Society there. We'll have not Mount Grace Land Trust. Oh, Susan is going to ring me for that one. Metacomet Land Trust will be there. Yeah, thanks, Pat. DCR will be there. DPW will be there. Conservation will be there. Hopefully you all will be there. I also have a colleague coming who is doing a vernal pool exploration. He's another wetland scientist. Ed Zemansky, he was here earlier. He takes nature photography. He actually sent me an email today asking or suggesting volunteering to do a bird walk. He's definitely a hobbyist ornithologist. He's a wealth of information for birds. Mike Downey, if you recall from last year, he'll be doing another woods walk. Some activities that we have going on, I'll start with what I think is the least fun and then go to the most fun. We're making seed bombs out of recycled newspaper. So we'll be using the conservation wildlife mix, and then Agway has also donated native grass seeds. So kids can make their own seed bombs. If they want to throw them at Delcart, that's fine, just not in the water, please. Otherwise they can chuck them wherever they want. And then additionally, in collaboration with AgCom, oh, I forgot to mention, AgCom will be there as they were last year. Roger Trahan, he owns Franklin Honey Company. I think it's Franklin Honey Company or Honey Bee Company. Anyways, I'll probably get yelled at for that later. He is repurposing the wooden boxes that honeybees are delivered in into native bee houses. So he's been working on those. He's deconstructing the boxes, putting them back together, and he'll have, I think, between 40 and 50 native bee boxes, and I expensed a bunch of reeds. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, if you were to go into any hardware store, Lowe's, Home Depot, Agway, you will see, or Tractor Supply Company, you'll see like bee barns or bee houses, and they have a bunch of holes in them, or reeds in them, or pine cones, what have you. So that's what we're making. And then the reeds that I purchased support native mason bee populations, which there is a healthy mason bee population here in Franklin. So kids will be able to make their own bee boxes, that is putting the reeds inside the box, and then paint them, which there's an educational component to there too. Bees can only see a certain range of color, and they are attracted to a certain range of color. So hopefully what they're painting will be attractive to the bees. So that's our activity that we have, and then additional information: compost bins, rain gardens, rain barrels, water save, hopefully, wetland stuff. I have a few other colleagues that have just volunteered to be there to talk to the crowd and get people jazzed. Overflow parking.
And we have a police detail.
And we'll have a police detail. And overflow parking has been outlined, and where that overflow parking is, and parking on additional side streets.
What are we thinking for the timing?
9 to 1. I extended it. I hope that was okay. Just because there's so much going on, and I think that's fine. 9 to 1. I was thinking as well, because we have 3 different types of walks, of staggering those and actually scheduling those. So people are back in enough time, which is another reason why the time is extended. So there are a few outstanding items. We still haven't talked about food. I'm hoping to get the ice cream truck back from last year. Food, anything. I mean, Jeff, you've been around the longest. So what do you think? Are any other ideas too?
I mean, that's a lot, and it's not a large area.
I know it's not.
We don't, I mean, I wish we had more area to put up more, like, kiosks, things like that. I mean, I thought last year was great, but even so, I mean, there wasn't much like additional space unless you take up the parking lot, which you don't want to because you don't have parking. So,
that's why I try to get people out, so that it's just
we're talking about like having a
point.
food truck and stuff like that, but where would the food truck go? I mean,
On the access, the
oh, the access,
the
little
access to
area,
the gate.
okay.
But just one. I mean, we can't have multiple.
Well, I mean, there's got to be a list of the ones that come to the farmer's market, right?
Yes.
And some of those are great. I mean, there's some great ones that come to farmer's market now. That's become a huge thing. I mean, like Melanie probably has a list of those.
Yeah, I bet the folks that run the farmers market probably have a list of it too.
Speaking of farmer's market, did we ever get a table or a booth?
We did.
We did. Okay.
We did get a table.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Okay. That's good.
Thank you for that reminder.
Okay. Okay. That's what I would do. I'd look at that list. There's
Yeah,
some really good ones.
that's a good one.
Yeah.
So actually, you bring up a good point, and something that I think could be stated a little bit clearer, that for tables, it's really only DPW,
Okay.
Conservation,
Yep.
and Metacomet Land Trust, and
Okay.
DCR.
Okay. Okay.
So the activities, I mean, I guess there's, 2 tables for bee painting, bee box
Right.
painting, but
Yeah, there really is not that much space between the lake and the playground, or the parking lot, unfortunately.
And then for service hours, so Rec Department is hosting their cleanup on Saturday. We moved to Sunday, so we weren't in competition with Rec Department, and then we can have a whole weekend of Earth Day events. Rec Department has removed Delcart from their cleanup list. So we get to have Delcart for our cleanup. So we can still do trash bags. I know, Pat, you mentioned wanting to save planting for a later date. I think that's fine. There are still plenty of areas that could be seeded, though. Derek could always drop off a bag of the Conservation Wildlife Mix, and kids could throw it out.
So I just want to make sure, so we are or are not competing with Beaver? The same day.
would be, we're not. So
Okay, we're
yeah,
not.
we moved to
Okay,
Sunday,
understand.
so Ryan
Okay.
could have his 22-year-long
Okay.
tradition.
Oh,
Yes,
okay, okay.
yes, we're not competing with them,
So we're cleaning Del Carte. on
but we're
Sunday.
cleaning Del Carte, yes.
Okay.
Yep. So, and then the way that actually it was told to me when I was talking about it with everybody at work is that Saturday is for like human impact on the planet, and then Sunday is for how the planet impacts humans and everything else. So I thought that was a really nice, hand in hand, yin and yang balance. I liked it.
Last year we had T-shirts.
We still have T-shirts.
We're doing that again?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah,
We
they
have
were awesome.
plenty of leftover T-shirts. I think they're medium and up.
I think if I remember correctly, we intentionally did not put a year on so that we
Yeah.
could use them again.
Yes.
Which was an intelligent idea.
Yes. That was all Tyler.
What do the t-shirts say?
It's an earth with a banner across. And Del Carte is at the top, so it is specific to Del Carte, but it just says Earth Day. And then Ryan is giving us his leftovers as well. So we will have we will have options.
Okay.
Did you make up a sign last year that we thought that we could carry forward, to put along the street?
Yeah, the banner?
The banner.
The
yeah.
banner's still there. Everything, yeah, that's all. We still have that. I have it tucked behind my office, my desk, I mean. So,
At some point during the
Rika.
last year, oh, sorry, go ahead, Meg.
No, I was just gonna, looking at the food truck thing, I know the one that comes to the winter market is Pangea Cuisines. It's like a taco food truck.
Yeah, taco food trucks are big. Yeah. That's
So-
Yeah.
the thing with the food truck, and I've talked to Brian about this, is that I can't ask.
You can't ask?
I work for the town.
Oh.
You can't ask because you're a
But we-
regulating authority. Somebody out in the ether would have to volunteer, or word
Like
through
we-
the
like nobody
street,
here has any
word through the
friends that
grapevine.
They can just call it the taco truck.
Yes, so that, because I may,
Someone-
lord
Somebody
over
get a
them with
friend to call the taco
wetlands,
truck.
that they need to give me a taco or
Okay.
something.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
I
know.
can't do that.
Yeah.
That's a good idea,
Ethics
Meg, though,
training,
and
yeah,
hopefully
yeah,
someone's listening, and they can.
So would that include ice cream truck too? That would need to be a,
Yes, that happened organically. Hopefully
Okay.
that we were at the Touch a Truck event, and somebody just happened to mention that there was another
You
event
could-
the following weekend,
Yeah.
and they showed up.
No,
So
you could go to the taco truck and say, well, I really, it would be nice.
I
if-
heard.
Yeah, I just heard that there was this thing that, I just heard,
So, as long as it's organic and, no, that's a good
Rika, My
idea.
other question is, looking at paints.
Yes.
Do you want me to look at specific colors that bees are attracted to get? Do you want me to stick away from like the reds and oranges?
I thought about mentioning that, but I think it would bees still go to flowers that are red. They don't not go to flowers that are red. But I think there would be more education saying bees don't see this color, you can still paint it, but they don't see this
Okay.
color, they see this color instead.
Well, but we don't have ultraviolet paints.
Yeah, as long as we don't have all the, yeah, that's true.
I mean, I'm just saying,
Yeah, we don't,
unfortunately, we don't make them
we don't make
for ourselves, so bees don't get them.
Yeah, and I found some fun handouts and all sorts of, ID guides and things. I know we're wetlands, but I really liked, Roger had a really good idea repurposing those, and I'm very grateful for his time and, evenings that he's spent designing this bee house, and now he's building
Is
40
it-
to 50 of them, so.
Is there any way, just does Roger need help assembling things? Or is there anything that, it would make sense to get together next weekend to assemble and just get things ready? Or does he have it kind of handled and he's doing his thing?
I don't know that answer. I don't know if he has a final prototype. I think he's close. I know he's been connecting with other AgCom members to help facilitate the activity as well at Del Carte. But I don't know. I'm sure he's watching, so I'm sure we will have an answer soon.
Yeah, so I think, and thank you, Rika, for, I mean, it seems like you did all of our jobs for us, but thank you for getting everyone involved but if there's anything that remains, we should certainly kind of divvy things up and yeah, to the extent that we can be reaching out to people or helping assemble or putting things together, we can definitely do that too.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Really, so final items, which may not be as fun as event planning, but definitely setting up. So even though we start at 9, I'm
Be there a little early, right?
be there early.
Okay.
I'm sure I'll be there at 7:30. You don't have to be there that early, but I will. Spreading the word, picking up food as well. So historically, somebody stopped off, to get coffee or breakfast. So that would be nice. What else, Jeff? And not to ignore everybody else, I just looked to him as.
Well, we have to put up the canopies and stuff like that.
Yeah, the
right?
canopies.
Right.
Yeah.
And hang the sign.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a good hour of setup.
At least a good hour.
Yeah,
At least.
provided nothing goes wrong and everybody,
And someone didn't forget something.
That's exactly
Yeah.
right.
Like, oh,
Yeah.
we'll have no chairs. That's gonna be a problem.
Yeah. Yes, and DPW will be bringing all the trash bins, another truck as well. Oh, that's something that I mentioned. A lot of the motherwort is coming back that the kids hand pulled last year because it had already went to seed. So if kids wanted to hand pull or if the commission sanctioned that as service hours as well, they could do that. And Derek is bringing a truck so that it can just be live loaded and then hauled off. So,
We won't be removing anything from the lake itself, right?
no, just near the where the old pollinator patch was. Yep.
How are the dams doing?
They're due for their.
How they do?
Yeah, they're due this year. So that it expires in November. So the dams have to periodically be checked and assessed. And I got a letter
Well,
from.
that's also the catch-alls have to be cleaned out too, because all that junk is, especially now.
Have you been to Delcart in the past 2 days?
No.
It's really high.
Is it?
It's really high at. I call it the first dam, but the dams are actually numbered south to north. So the way that water flows. So this would be the 4th dam. So that first dam from the main trailhead and the parking lot and the playground, there's less than 6 inches of headspace.
Really?
Yes. So I'm actually going out there tomorrow with Derek to get in there and see what we can clear. But then if you go to dam 3 or 2, which is on the opposite side from the other parking lot, there's less than an inch of water at the bottom of that. You can see the entire dam.
Okay.
So something, it doesn't quite make sense why it's impounded so
Well,
far up,
no,
but then
no,
it's
just-
not there.
But do you have lots of debris? Because what happens?
It's debris.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
get all this debris.
Yeah.
So we
It's-
were jumping in, this is years ago, we were jumping in, we were like just throwing all
Yeah.
clearing it out, basically.
Yeah, that's
and
fine.
taking it away.
That'd be great. If anybody wants to do that tomorrow, show up. I'll be there. Yeah, so right now it's just debris. I know there's a beaver that lives like actually under the tracks in the adjacent wetland complex, and they have been shown to me going through the culvert underneath the
Oh,
tracks
yeah.
into Delcart.
Yeah,
So they're very busy.
yeah, they're very busy.
They're very busy. So it's all right. I like a challenge. So that's what I have for April 23rd.
It's a lot of stuff, nice work.
Thanks. Well, I just had to ask people, and then they said okay. So, but thank you for that, anyways.
So I have a question. Are you done with your list?
The only thing I wanted to ask is if we had a rain date, but other than that, continue.
No, I just, just in case people were interested, we had our first board of directors meeting for a
Yes, congratulations again.
So I just thought it was kind of interesting, just to give you some points. So I was we talked about membership, and I was struck about how many Concoms do not participate in MACC.
Really?
Yeah, it's a large fraction, actually, surprisingly, okay? And that's an issue, because it actually turns out that the number of participating Concoms has decreased over the last 5 years, especially during the pandemic. It's pretty interesting.
What do you mean by participating Concoms?
People aren't members of MACC. None of the Concom members are they don't come to the meetings, they're not even members. And the town doesn't pay or anything like that.
The
So
town
it's-
doesn't pay
No.
for it?
No. Yeah, pretty interesting, isn't it?
Oh, that's
So,
sad.
And what's interesting is that the farther you go west, the more that is true, which is interesting because that's where you have like obviously all the forests and all the
Yeah.
waterways. I mean, really, so I thought that was really interesting. So one of the objectives, there are a handful, but one of the objectives for this year is to try to figure out how you might be able to pull more Concoms in. And so the idea is to try to find ways to make more communication between the Concoms. And I was saying that it's too bad, COVID, it was too bad because, we went to the college in
Yeah.
Worcester, right? I mean, the best thing about that, to be honest, was networking. It was the lunch. The lunch was when you got to, no, seriously. No, it was
People
like,
go for the
the heck
food.
with the sessions, it was the lunch because you got to meet all the
Yeah.
people. And, you would only see these people once a year, but you always
Yes.
sit around the table, and that's when you get to hear like all the stories about the crazy stuff that happened, and how did you do this, and how did you do that. I mean, so I was kind of promoting that. So, so this year's at Devon's again, right? Which is a much, much, much smaller venue, and that's again because, over the last 3 years, they've seen a precipitous drop-off of the MACC meetings. It probably will not be going back to Worcester, but they are looking for a bigger venue than Devon's for the year, the next year after that. But someplace in the Metro West area, right? So I was thinking about one of the conference centers, one of those
Yeah.
like the, what's the one in Ashland that's,
Oh, yeah,
that's,
by
you know what I'm talking
State Park.
about? Yeah, just basically those estates that they turned into,
Yeah.
colleges bought up, and, that kind of, so it's something like that would be like,
That'd be
because,
really neat.
right.
Do the
So,
botanical.
and you need cafeteria, you need food.
Yeah.
So that's something like that. I can't remember what it was called. It was something house or something.
Yeah,
whatever.
I know what you mean by
you know what I'm
cafeteria.
talking- Yeah, but so thinking like that. So that was number one. Number two, one of the second issues of several that I thought that was interesting was the aging out of conservation. Trying to get the younger people involved. Big issue. Major issue. And one of the things that the board did say that they wanted to do is they have, I think it's 5 or 6 committees, and one of them that they're going to create, which is a new one, is a digital committee as outreach. So it's really part of an outreach,
Sure.
right? Because actually they do not a great job at all of that. And if you look at their website and all this stuff,
Yeah.
social media, they're basically non-existent, and they just don't do any of that. So they really need some quote, younger blood in to sort of bring that into the 21st century, 22nd century, or whatever it is now.
Probably need to get them on TikTok.
Get him on TikTok.
Holy smokes.
So I said to them, I said, because we have these amazing people, Franklin is a really progressive Concom. So of course I opened my big mouth, and now it's like, well, then hey, you can come to the next meeting, you can give a presentation on basically all the great stuff you've done. So I'm not the person that does it, right? But I'm just saying, but they're looking for ideas, looking for new ideas, right? And it is true. I mean, Franklin has been very progressive, and I mean, if you've been going to the MAC meetings, again, this is when they went to Worcester year after year, people would come up and tell you that. They would come and say,
Yeah.
yeah, Franklin, oh yeah, you're with Franklin, oh yeah, they do amazing stuff. Because we actually created a lot of policy that was later adopted throughout the state. Actually, it started here in Franklin. People don't really know that, but we actually did. We did a lot of stuff. I mean, over the last, 13 years? Yeah, we did a lot. So we were kind of first movers. We were known for that. So Franklin is known as a really pretty progressive Concom. It's its reputation among
Like what kind of
businesses.
stuff?
Just policies, like the forms, the templates,
Yeah.
making it easier for people the guides,
Yeah.
things like that, right? And one of the things I said in the board of directors meeting, I said was, I felt one of the things that frankly I did really well was, again, when I came in, again, this is 13 years ago, so whatever, it was the Concom was seen as a penalizing entity, very much a penalizing entity.
Penalizing, it shouldn't be.
Right, and it was basically, the way it worked was, or the way, I should say, the perception, the citizens' perception of Concom was this: I'm gonna stand behind this tree, and I'm gonna watch you, and I'm gonna wait for you to make a mistake, and then I'm gonna jump out from the tree and say, gotcha, right? Okay, that was the attitude, the perception of the citizenry of Concom.
It's still
Totally.
there.
Right, really.
It's still there with me.
Well-
Everybody's scared of me
Oh, well, wait.
at first.
But it's,
Until they get to know you.
but it was
Continue.
bad. It was
Yeah.
really freaking bad and really freaking adversarial. Like, you have no idea. The stuff that went on in here, the screaming stuff, it was crazy. So.
Really?
Oh, you have no idea. You have no idea. And, what you also found, and I guess just my observation was, a lot of the developers and the agents and stuff like that would be just spending so much time trying to find a way around Concom. That was the general way you worked in Franklin, right? So I mean, it was really perverted, okay? So that is not at all how it is nowadays. So again, here we are, a decade later, and it's completely changed. So they liked that. They thought that was a great story, right? And I said, well, it was a bunch of people that decided, again, progressively to make that happen, right? To do that. And we had successfully excellent people, thank goodness, and excellent Concom people who kind of saw that vision and wanted that for the town. And ultimately, the town, I think, in my opinion, has become much more accepting of conservation. I mean, things like Delcard and all these other things help too, of course it's true. But basically it was that conservation became, and this is how I put it, it became more a part of the conversation. We basically the Concom was able to put conservation back into the town-wide conversation about things, right? It became a topic. It wasn't a topic before. It was like taxes, right? No, it was seen as like taxes. But that's not how it is now. It's part of the conversation, the town-wide conversation. And you see this at some of the municipal meetings, right? You see this at the CBG,
Yes.
right? You see this at all these other things, right? Which we now do. We didn't admit this when we were doing it at the time. So now they're like going, oh, well, that's an amazing story. It's a great story. You need to come and tell that story. Why don't you give a workshop? Because I open up my mouth. So anyway, so I don't know. I'm not really there yet. But I'm just saying that, it's nice that the town is being recognized for the stuff that's being done. And I would say if there's any time that Mac needs someone like Franklin, it's now, because again, with the first issue, which was the dwindling, right? Why is that? Okay. So I'm not trying to plug us, but I'm just saying, maybe you need to spend more time looking at what Franklin's doing, because and you need to promote those ideas as Mac. I mean, Franklin really can't do that, right? That was obnoxious, but Mac can, right? So that's kind of the conversation we had, at the board meeting on Monday, which I thought was pretty cool. So just to give you a flavor.
Jeff, so I have on my list, I was gonna contact DOT to see about the April 23rd, if they could market it, if they wanted to come. Do you think that would be beneficial?
I think that would be a good idea.
Okay.
I think that would be a good idea, yeah.
Okay.
I think she would be very interested in that, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think, if I was them, I would send, because I don't think Dot knows about Delcard, doesn't know about the history. And if you could educate her a bit on that, I think that's pretty important. No, seriously, she's kind of a tough cookie. But, she's been doing it a long time. She knows where all skeletons are, like one of those, right? So she's really, really good. She's been there forever. So, I think you could probably convince her to have a representative from NICC there.
Okay.
And I think that would be a very good thing, right?
Okay.
That there's a bigger thing here than just Franklin. It's actually Franklin is a part of something larger, right? And something that's very progressive. And also, you guys probably know, and this was interesting because I actually met conservation people when I was in my trip, my 2-month trip, both in South Carolina and North Carolina, outside Raleigh, which is where it was. So I went from South Carolina to North Carolina to Pennsylvania and Mass. And pretty much the consensus was that Massachusetts as a state was extremely progressive in conservation, policy, by the way. So not just Franklin, but Massachusetts. So Massachusetts is seen as like a real leader in conservation issues and policies. And apparently a lot of the congressional debate starts here, actually. This is what I'm being told. So there's other states. So it was pretty interesting.
Yeah,
Right? So I'm just saying, okay, that's great, right? How can we leverage that now, right? So I think MACC would my personal opinion, I'm not trying to be, picky, but I don't see them, I see them as, we have these classes. Come to our meetings and attend these, and attend these classes and get your certification. And that's kind of where it stops, right? Honestly, that's kind of where it stops. They don't do a very good job promoting anything else that they do. That's my personal opinion. And if you ask them actually if they interact like with the Audubon Society or the trustees or the land trusts, the answer is really no, they don't. And it's like, really? I would think you would want to take a leadership position and sort of unify all of these like-minded groups around you, right? So I was really advocating for that at the board of directors. So, but you have to understand that the people on the board of directors have been there for a long time. If you know what I mean. Okay, a long time. They're there a long time.
Well,
and there's a lot of people, and there's some young people, but the majority have been there a very long time.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, I think we kind of have to like poke the bear a bit, like that. So to get some of these new ideas, and again, Franklin can become like a like a paragon of the future, like that, okay.
That's pretty heavy.
I didn't say that, but I'm just saying that that wouldn't be necessarily a bad thing. So I just think that I think that we as a body could probably have a much closer and intimate relationship with MACC than we have had so far, and help MACC with the longer term objectives of sort of making conservation part of the conversation, right? Because Dot's kept saying, that's a great phrase, I said, okay, that's it, right? Okay, so I just want to give you kind of like the flavor of what went down at the meeting, and I think we're supposed to meet every other month. I think it's every other month anyway. So, and then I have to sign up for a couple of committees. I'm gonna actually sign up for the finance committee because apparently there's nobody that knows finance on the finance committee.
At MAC?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right.
So there's I'm going to be assigned to the digital committee because I opened my big mouth about the digital. So I know that.
Yeah.
So I'll probably do finance and digital.
No good
How
turn
bad
goes
is the
on the
digital?
board.
Yeah, I know. That's right. Yeah.
I'll talk to you afterwards about
Okay. But so again, just to give you a flavor of kind of what.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it was good.
it. Yep. Everything MAC is expendable too, if it costs money.
Expensible, not expendable.
Expensive. You're right.
Whoa, is that a Freudian slip or what?
Thanks, Pat.
Tell us how you really.
I know.
Tell us how you really.
No, I'm just gonna avoid eye contact. Expensible. Thank you.
On that note, before we become expendable.
I know.
So we'll meet again before, on the 20th, before Del Card, so can hammer out any last minute things then. But Brika, if there's anything in the meantime that we can help with or that you need from us or that we should get ahead of, and particularly if we have non-Concom friends who can call up a food truck, maybe Jim Hagan can take that up.
You listening, Jim?
Otherwise, barring anything else, I'll take a motion to close.
Did you want a rain date for Delcart?
I can always send an
Rain date.
email. Did
Okay.
you want to discuss the rain date right now? I'm sure it'll be 85, 90 degrees and
Bright sun.
sunny in April. Yeah.
Gotta be positive.
Yeah.
We've had pretty good luck.
No,
Let's just,
last time, didn't we? Oh, we had good
Yeah.
weather last
Yeah, we had.
Yeah.
I'm making a
little rain.
climate change
No,
joke.
no,
That's
no,
what I'm
okay, that
making.
was good. It wasn't too hot.
I'm being sarcastic. Sorry.
We don't want to have.
Unfortunately, it'll be 85.
Unfortunately, it'll be. Just being sarcastic. This is tropical to me. Also, I'm still in Minnesota. They have
Oh,
9
that's
inches.
right, Minnesota,
Yeah, they have
right.
9 inches right now. So
Oh, man.
sunshine in April is throwing me for a loop.
See, I get to do spring twice. Yeah, yeah. Because when I left, it was 75.
Did you really?
Yeah, and all the flowers were out. Everything was out. So,
wow.
yeah.
All right. Continue, Pat. Sorry. Or rain date. Did we want a rain date? I'm sorry. I'm flustered now.
let's table that for now, and we
All right.
can look at the calendar as it gets a little closer if it looks like we'll need it.
Sounds good.
Cool. Meg, can I have a motion to close?
I will give you a motion to close.
Second.
Third.
Second. All in favor?
Undebatable.
Aye.
Aye.
Have a good night, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Recording stopped.